France did cyber espionage on Burkina Faso, thinking it was an easy target. But have you heard about the reaction of Burkina Faso, a nation considered weak by the West? The state immediately arrested 4 people accused of espionage, and even after France's extreme pressure to return them, Burkina Faso is determined on its decision. It says France must pay for its action, especially considering African nations are easy targets. But has France done espionage, or is it just a misunderstanding? Let's find out. On December 1, 2023, Burkina Faso made headlines as it arrested 4 French officials, initially identified as computer maintenance technicians. But why did Burkina Faso take such bold action? The story changed when suspicions of espionage surfaced, creating a diplomatic split between the two nations. The 4 French officials were in trouble when Burkina Faso authorities apprehended them on suspicion of espionage. According to a French diplomatic source, the individuals initially portrayed as computer maintenance technicians were accused of engaging in activities that raised concerns. Interestingly, a contrasting narrative emerged from a Burkinabe source, which insisted that the arrested men were, in fact, intelligence agents. This discrepancy in the understanding of their roles adds a layer of complexity to the case. Were they innocent technicians caught in the crossfire or part of a covert intelligence operation? The nature of the accusations remains elusive, leaving room for speculation and diplomatic tension. In the wake of the arrests, the French government swiftly protected the detained officials through the French Consulate General. Consular protection is a legal right allowing citizens to seek assistance and protection from their home country's consulate when facing legal issues abroad. In this case, the French officials were supported during legal proceedings in Burkina Faso. While acknowledging that legal processes were underway, the French government denied the espionage accusations. Official statements maintained that the individuals were computer maintenance technicians and had no ulterior motives in Burkina Faso. So, was it espionage, or was it Burkina Faso's misunderstanding? As Burkina Faso grapples with arresting 4 French officials on suspicion of espionage, questions arise about whether this is an isolated incident or part of a larger pattern. A recent incident involving a French national in Azerbaijan sheds light on similar accusations, raising concerns about the possibility of state-sponsored espionage by France. On December 4, 2023, a French national, Martin Ryan, was arrested in Azerbaijan on suspicion of espionage. This incident adds value to the espionage narrative involving French citizens, coming shortly after the arrest of 4 French officials in Burkina Faso. The timing and nature of these arrests raise questions about whether there is a pattern of alleged espionage by French nationals in different regions. The arrest of Martin Ryan in Azerbaijan implies that accusations of espionage involving French nationals may not be an isolated occurrence. The notion of state-sponsored espionage is a serious concern, as it suggests a systematic and coordinated effort by a government to gather sensitive information from other nations. While the French government has vehemently denied such allegations, the recurrent nature of these incidents prompts a closer examination of the possibility of state involvement. Looking at past examples involving French nationals and espionage accusations is essential to understanding the current situation better. Historical context can provide insights into whether these incidents are isolated occurrences or part of a broader pattern. In recent years, there have been instances where French citizens faced espionage allegations in various regions. While some cases were resolved without significant diplomatic fallout, others sparked tensions between France and the countries involved. The recurring espionage accusations against French nationals raise questions about the effectiveness of diplomatic efforts to prevent such incidents from recurring. In response to the recent arrests, the French government has consistently denied involvement in espionage activities. Official statements emphasize that the detained individuals in Burkina Faso or Azerbaijan were engaged in legitimate activities, such as computer maintenance. And why is France rejecting espionage accusations in Burkina Faso? Does France have any valid claims to prove its innocence? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. The rejection of espionage accusations by the French government stems from a steadfast commitment to defending the integrity and purpose of its officials in Burkina Faso. While the reason for their arrest remains unclear, a French diplomatic source asserts that the individuals were computer maintenance technicians. The French government's refusal to consider the notion of espionage is grounded in its emphasis on the officials' purported role as computer maintenance technicians. According to the diplomatic source, the individuals were in Burkina Faso for legitimate and routine maintenance work, not intelligence activities. The government categorically rejects any implication of espionage and highlights the lack of clarity surrounding the charges against its officials. France has responded with a persistent demand for their immediate return. The urgency of this plea suggests more than a simple diplomatic trick. It is a forceful assertion of the officials' innocence. Equipped with diplomatic passports and visas, these technicians enjoy consular protection, reinforcing France's stance that they were engaged in lawful activities. The four accused French officials, armed with diplomatic passports and valid visas, benefit from consular protection, a legal right allowing citizens facing legal troubles abroad to seek assistance and protection from their home country's consulate. France's demand for the immediate return of the accused individuals is a bold move, indicating the government's relentless confidence in their innocence. The urgency behind this request is not merely a procedural step, but a strategic diplomatic trick to tell the world that France firmly believes its nationals were wrongfully accused. The call for a swift return without delay sends a strong message that extends beyond the legal complexities of the case. It attempts to shape the narrative surrounding the arrests and influence international opinion. By presenting the accused as innocent technicians caught in the crossfire, France aims to garner support and sympathy on the global stage. The demand for the immediate return of the accused officials is not without diplomatic ramifications. With France's assertive stance, Burkina Faso must carefully navigate the situation to avoid escalating tensions further. The speed with which both nations handle the diplomatic fallout will influence their bilateral relations and standing in the international community. For France, a successful, swift return of its nationals would be a diplomatic triumph, reinforcing the narrative of innocence. On the contrary, any delays or complications in the process could cast doubt on the legitimacy of their claims and potentially tarnish their international image. So, will the arrest impact France-Burkina Faso relations? The recent arrest of 4 French officials in Burkina Faso has created significant ripples in the already troubled relationship between the two countries. France and Burkina Faso have been facing challenges in their diplomatic ties, marked by events such as Burkina Faso's military coup in September 2022 and the subsequent expulsion of French diplomats. The recent arrests have further strained this delicate relationship, complicating a fragile diplomatic situation. The Franco-Burkinabe relations hit after Burkina Faso experienced a military coup in September 2022. Following the coup, tensions escalated with the expulsion of French diplomats. These events set the stage for the recent arrests, intensifying strained conditions between the two nations. The impact of the arrests on France-Burkina Faso relations is complex. Firstly, the existing strain in their ties provides a background for understanding the gravity of the recent arrests. The fallout from the military coup and diplomatic expulsions has created an environment of mistrust and unease. The French government has denied allegations of espionage against the arrested officials and is pressing for their immediate return. This stance has only fueled the fire, contributing to the tension between the two nations. The refusal to accept the accusations and the demand for the officials' release highlights the seriousness of the situation. But why has France done state-sponsored espionage if the accusations are true? National security concerns lie at the forefront of espionage motivations. Countries deploy espionage to gather intelligence on threats that could compromise their security. This encompasses a wide range of activities, from monitoring the military capabilities of other nations to understanding geopolitical dynamics that might impact a country's safety. The rationale behind such efforts is rooted in the belief that information is power. By staying ahead in the intelligence game, nations aim to identify and assess potential threats, allowing them to formulate robust defense strategies. Even if France has some security concerns from Burkina Faso, is espionage justified? To begin with, it's important to note that France has not explicitly stated any specific security threats originating from Burkina Faso. This absence of an official mention raises the question of why France resorted to espionage in the first place. The mystery deepens when we consider that, if there were genuine security concerns, one would expect the concerned country to address them openly. In this case, the lack of disclosure about any security threat from Burkina Faso casts doubt on whether such concerns were the driving force behind France's decision to engage in espionage. The ethics of espionage come into question when considering the principles of transparency and open communication between nations. Espionage, or spying, involves gathering secret information without the knowledge or consent of the target country. While intelligence activities can be crucial for national security, it is essential to strike a balance between protecting one's interests and respecting the sovereignty of other nations. Without a clear security threat from Burkina Faso, the motives behind France's espionage activities remain unclear. Speculation and uncertainty surround this issue, leaving room for diplomatic tensions and misunderstandings. Now comes the second reason that can explain why France engaged in espionage. Traditionally associated with defense and national security, espionage has expanded its reach into the intricate web of economic interests. In addition to safeguarding national borders, nations may employ espionage tactics to gain a competitive edge in economic and trade-related affairs. This involves the covert collection of information about other countries' economic policies, trade negotiations, and technological advancements. The stakes are remarkably high in today's interconnected and globalized world, where economic strength is synonymous with geopolitical influence. Understanding the economic landscape of rival nations provides valuable insights that can profoundly influence a country's economic policies, trade agreements, and industrial strategies. However, the ethical implications of such actions prompt crucial questions about fair competition and the fundamental principles of international cooperation. Espionage for economic purposes involves obtaining sensitive information that can give a country a strategic advantage globally. This information may include details about trade secrets, market trends, and upcoming innovations. By staying ahead of the curve, nations aim to position themselves favorably in the competitive economic landscape. While the desire for prosperity and influence drives the quest for economic advantage through espionage, it raises ethical concerns. The principles of fair competition and mutual respect between nations can be strained when covert activities are employed to gain the upper hand. Such practices may damage the trust required for healthy international relations and cooperation. There is also another reason that could have prompted France to take this action. The world of espionage operates on a dynamic stage where nations, driven by the need to protect their interests, engage in intelligence gathering. However, this is not one-sided, as countries also allocate significant resources to counterintelligence efforts. Counterintelligence aims to identify and neutralize the espionage activities of other nations, creating a delicate balance of power on the global stage. In this cat-and-mouse game, understanding the intelligence-gathering activities of rival countries is crucial for preventing potential threats. Robust security measures, suspicious activity analysis, and espionage network dismantling are integral to counterintelligence efforts. It is important to note that Burkina Faso has not been involved in such activities. Despite the West emphasizing the need for African nations, including Burkina Faso, to step up their efforts in intelligence and security, there is no evidence suggesting any malicious intent from Burkina Faso towards France. The West often advocates for increased vigilance and proactive measures in intelligence from African nations. However, it is crucial to recognize that many African countries, including Burkina Faso, face unique challenges and may not have the same resources or capabilities as their Western counterparts. Given that Burkina Faso is not an adversary of France and has not engaged in espionage activities, the question arises, why would Burkina Faso take actions that might encourage France to keep a watchful eye on it? The logical conclusion is that such motivations seem unfounded. A noticeable trend has recently emerged on the African continent, a resistance towards the West. Africa appears to be gravitating more towards partnerships with China and Russia. This shift has not gone unnoticed by Western nations, leading them to speculate about Africa's intentions. A striking example of this geopolitical tension is the case of Burkina Faso, where France, a traditional Western ally, engaged in espionage activities. Africa's growing affinity for China and Russia has become a cause for concern in Western capitals. This departure from historical alliances has raised eyebrows, triggering a sense of suspicion among Western nations. The fear is palpable, and there is a perception that Africa might be plotting something against the West. This perceived shift has prompted France, a key player in African affairs, to focus on Burkina Faso. The increased relations between Burkina Faso and Russia, especially in the military and nuclear domains, have become a focal point of Western anxiety. The West, particularly France, views this as a potential threat to its regional interests. Consequently, the decision to conduct espionage activities in Burkina Faso can be seen as a reactive measure to assess the nature and extent of this growing partnership. However, it is crucial to emphasize that no justification fully favors espionage. Even if concerns exist about a nation's shifting alliances, resorting to espionage raises ethical and diplomatic questions. The question is this: if a nation does not directly threaten another's security, what justifies engaging in espionage? China's increasing influence, driven by economic investments and infrastructure projects, has provided an alternative to Western aid and partnerships. Similarly, Russia has sought to strengthen its ties with African nations, establishing itself as a significant player in the region. For Burkina Faso, the deepening collaboration with Russia in military and nuclear spheres has raised concerns in the West. The fear is not merely about economic ties, but also strategic and security dimensions. As a result, France, being historically invested in the region, chose to employ espionage to gain insights into the nature of these burgeoning alliances. It is crucial to recognize the legitimate security concerns that nations may have. Observing geopolitical shifts is a standard practice in a world where regional stability has global implications. However, the challenge lies in distinguishing between genuine security concerns and unfounded fears that may lead to actions such as espionage. In the case of Burkina Faso, the question arises: is the nation truly a threat to the security of Western nations, especially France? Without clear evidence of a direct threat, the espionage activities appear to be a preemptive measure driven by suspicions rather than concrete evidence. This raises ethical questions about the respect for national sovereignty and the right of nations to form alliances based on their interests. Furthermore, the dynamics of international relations necessitate a fine understanding of soft power and influence. Instead of resorting to espionage, Western nations could explore diplomatic avenues to engage with African nations that are strengthening ties with non-traditional allies. Dialogue, cooperation, and understanding the motivations behind these shifts might yield more positive outcomes than covert operations. While it is essential for nations to safeguard their interests, a balance must be struck between security concerns and respecting the autonomy of other nations. Espionage, especially in the absence of a clear and imminent threat, risks damaging diplomatic relations and the principles of international cooperation. Critics now assert a compelling viewpoint: that the West's involvement in Burkina Faso is driven by a self-centered agenda rather than a genuine concern for the nation's security. The prevailing narrative suggests that the West exploited Burkina Faso without regard for its security interests. This sentiment has gained value as it is believed that the West assumed an effortless extension into Burkina Faso's security affairs. However, the reality proves otherwise. Burkina Faso stands resilient and equipped with the capability to defend itself against external interference. The skepticism arises from the notion that Western interests in Burkina Faso are primarily motivated by self-interest rather than a sincere commitment to the nation's security. Critics argue that the West, driven by its geopolitical and economic objectives, has overlooked the well-being and security of Burkina Faso. This perspective gains confidence from historical instances where Western powers have been accused of exploiting African nations for their gains, often at the expense of local stability. The recent espionage activities reveal a miscalculation on the part of the West. It appears Burkina Faso is not an easy target for external interference. Burkina Faso's response to Western espionage highlights the importance of recognizing the agency and capabilities of African nations. It challenges the narrative of African nations being passive recipients of external influence and exploitation. Burkina Faso's ability to protect its security interests sends a clear message that African nations are not underestimated and can effectively counter attempts at violation. There's a prevailing sentiment urging a crucial shift in international relations, a call for the West to treat all nations, especially those in Africa, as equals. The argument is that historical imbalances and exploitative practices should give way to a more fair approach in diplomatic interactions. This call for equality highlights the need to fundamentally reevaluate how the West engages with African nations, recognizing their sovereignty and agency. Critics argue that the West's historical approach toward African nations has often been marked by a sense of superiority and an assumption of authority. This mindset, they contend, has perpetuated a dynamic where Western powers dictate terms, often disregarding African nations' unique circumstances, aspirations, and capabilities. The call for equality demands moving away from this paternalistic attitude and recognizing that African nations have the right to be treated with dignity and respect. The idea of equality goes beyond mere words. It advocates for tangible changes in how diplomatic, economic, and security matters are approached. Western nations should not have the audacity to do espionage on African nations without expecting consequences. Do you think anything can justify the espionage done by France? Are you also shocked at France's audacity? Why do they think Africa is an easy target for espionage? In the comments section, let us know if you think Burkina Faso is planning a trap against the West or France. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.
Deposit photos and music. Deposit photos and music.